Members, we have attained the quorum. It is time to make a start. This is the last meeting in this legislative session. There are 2 items on the agenda, so please feel free to add your views. The minutes of the meeting held on May 16, 2017 has been made available to members. We have received no proposed amendments. Can I take the minutes as confirmed? All right, the minutes are taken as read. There are 2 information papers issued since the last meeting. The first one is the information paper on proposed technical amendment to import and export electronic cargo information regulation to tie in with the commissioning of the Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, Hong Kong Port. That's paper 1305/16/1701. The other one is the administration's response to the recommendations mentioned in the report on S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies and World Trade Organization Parliamentarian Workshop 2017, submitted by Dr. Edward Yu. That's paper CP1 1312/16/17, bracket 01. If you have any comments, please take them up with the administration. Next, development of Unicel. Just a reminder that this has to do with funding requests, and members are supposed to be here to decide whether we endorse the proposal. Shall we invite the administration in, please? We have the secretary here with us. Secretary on his own. I thought you were coming on your own. Let's welcome the administration. The administration has prepared a paper that's CB1 1393/16-17, bracket 03. The Secretariat has also kindly put together the background brief, that's CB1 1293/16-17, bracket 04. So without further ado, I'd like to invite the administration to brief us on the paper first. And also a reminder that under 83A of the ROP, if members have any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, to do with the items, please make the disclosure before we discuss the items. So I'd like to invite the administration to brief us, please. Chairman, thank you. Chairman, myself and my colleagues, together with the Hong Kong Science Park, to brief members on the Unicel proposal, and I hope the members will support this proposal. In the 27th policy address, the administration will get on with the Unicel next to the Hong Kong Science Park to improve the IT environment. We're going to have the co-working space and co-living space made available to the tenants and incubatees of the science park, and also overseas or mainland employees of the existing tenants or incubatees. This is to the southeast part of the science park, covering 0.28 hectares. It will stand up to 18 stories with 15,300 square meters. We're going to provide 518 square meter units. We have communal facilities like reading rooms, leisure rooms, and other facilities to provide pleasant and comfortable living conditions. The work will be completed in 2020. In terms of rent, it will be 60% of the units in the neighboring area. It will be something like $6,000 to $8,000 per month. The construction cost will be $800 million. In order to show our commitment to the promotion of I&T ecosystem in Hong Kong, subject to members' endorsement, we propose that there will be an equity injection of $560 million should be injected to the HKSTPC, and a government guarantee for a commercial loan of $240 million. And this will enhance the competitiveness and attractiveness of the science park. I hope the members will support the proposal and the financial proposal. All right, there you are. Members are welcome to put questions. Mr. Chen Chen-Ying, I impose a time limit of 4 minutes to start with. Mr. Chen. This Unicel, I support the idea, although I have some questions about the finances. Let me take the construction cost. It is $44,938 per square foot. I mean, even for luxury apartments, we don't have to spend $4,500 per square foot. It doesn't involve any land cost. Why so expensive? Second, in terms of revenue, if we take $10,000, 500 would yield $5 million, and per year it will be $60 million. And what is the cost of the whole project in terms of rental yield? What is the net revenue for the government? I'm not merely looking at the net revenue alone, but there is a cash flow, and you're going to recoup the cost in the year 2033. In the interim period, you're going to have some interest payment. Now, each year, the interest is $7 million. Is this a reasonable level? Now, that's the financial question that I'd like to put to the administration. Now, we have 17,000 staff in the second stage, but we have only 500 people. Only less than 3% of the people will benefit from it. What is the proportion of mainland employees in proportion to the overall number? Will these 500 be anywhere enough to meet the demand? Secretary? Right, I call upon the Commissioner to take the question, except to say that there are a lot of common facilities. And we do have some figures in this regard. I defer to the Commissioner. Commissioner? The construction cost, we did make some comparison. If you look at the science park expansion and also the neighboring developments, we have the figures derived from that. I can let the science park take the question directly. It's the number anywhere near enough. It's hard to say whether it is enough. We have the physical site constraint, and on this particular site, we can build only 500 units at the most.
I believe that this would only be the first step. Right now, we have no facilities at all. There are 600 odd companies currently at the science park, and we have conducted studies, and we realize that there is a demand. Some of the demand might be more long-term, say 2 or 3 years, and others more short-term. So some tenants might only be here for 2 or 3 months. We would assess the situation again after we begin operation and see whether the demand can be fully met. We cannot say at this stage. So have you not done any assessments yet? The HKSTP conducted assessment on the demand, and we believe that there is a demand. But we cannot promise to solve all problems at this stage. But this would be the first step in providing living accommodation. I'd like to talk about the average construction cost of $75,000. We will be careful with the construction costs, but they have been verified by the Architectural Services Department. What about the management costs? The income is $60 million a year, but how much do you have to spend on management every year? Can you provide the information afterwards? I'm sure you will be asked the question again at the Finance Committee. Members will certainly ask about the management costs and the demand projection. Mr. Ma Fengkuo. Secretary. The Unicel provides a space for exchanges and collaboration. Visiting INT talents can be accommodated within the science park, and that will facilitate exchanges with the companies. And we realize that there's a demand for that. As to whether the 500 units can serve the entire community, our plan is to have enough units for the science park. As I said, you need to provide further data on the management costs. Mr. Ma Fengkuo, I have a question about policy. This is much needed in Hong Kong because housing in Hong Kong is too expensive. We have seen a few major government projects, including Kai Tak and West Kowloon Cultural District, and we have a lot of art and culture talents which might need to stay in Hong Kong. Do you have such policy in place in for other sectors? Is this a housing policy or just an INT policy? Can 500 units really satisfy the demand? You did not answer that question. If demand is greater than supply, how will you assign these 500 units to different companies? How do you set your priorities? If there's a surplus supply, what are you going to do with these units? Secretary, I'd like to invite Ms. Choi to take that question. First of all, for other types of demand, we cannot offer a response. But in terms of nurturing INT talents from overseas or the mainland who need temporary accommodation in Hong Kong, we realize that there's such a demand. And similar facilities are in place in science parks of in other places, for example, in the mainland. And elsewhere in other countries, such facilities are also available. So we do have a demand. I know that of course, there would be a demand with every sector. So our focus is on the innovation and technology sector. In terms of our criteria, as we said in our paper, we have mentioned our service targets. But as for the admission criteria and procedures, the Hong Kong STP will publish detailed criteria, and there will be an assessment panel. Does it mean that there are no criteria available now? Chairman, this is my time slot. As we said in paragraph 9, we are going to house principals of tenants or incubatees, overseas or mainland employees, or visiting scientists and researchers who might need to stay for some time. So these are our primary targets. As for the admission criteria, we will leave it to the HKSCP. For these 3 types of residents, is there a breakdown on the percentage of each? We have no such breakdown at this stage. Mr. Charles Ma. Chairman, we do see a demand for this type of Unicel. And overseas company told us that it's not a problem for them to find an office because they can go to Cyber Park or Science Park. But they have nowhere to stay in. Housing is very expensive in Hong Kong. If you can provide a space for them to stay in the first few months so that they won't have to stay in hotels, then they can focus on their INT work. But on the downside, there are criticisms that the Science Park might have digressed in their work by providing accommodation, and some people might complain that the elderly also need such accommodation, and there might be people calling for you to do more for the sports and cultural sector. I'm sure members will ask you such questions in the coming Finance Committee meetings. You mentioned 3 types of or 3 groups of tenants which could be accommodated, including overseas or mainland employees, and some people might wonder whether the employees are important enough to warrant accommodation. We might be talking about part-timers, and of the 3 target tenants for A and C, it is completely justified, but for employees, they might not be talents. You said that this is a short-term measure, but we would like to know whether you are referring to 3 months or half a year or else. By the time you reach the FC, you have to provide details of the admission criteria. Members ask whether the supply would be enough. I think you can never fill the demand, and you can never meet 100% of the demand. In the short term, the idea is to bring convenience to as many people as possible, so I'm not too worried about the supply. What are you going to do anything for local employees? I'd like the CEO of HKSCP to tell us about the transportation and other measures. You have to tell us that you do not just focus on overseas employees. For the locals, it's impossible for you to build enough hostels for them, but that said, they still work in the science park. This is just the first step of the science park, and if this model works and with the right demand, and we can proceed with PPP, and we will have private companies on board. The focus of the science park is not on construction or development. When we have visiting scientists or researchers, local companies would also benefit. You asked about the tenancy period. The shortest will be 1 month and the longest 4 years. The longest tenancy will be 4 years. So it's a very long tenancy, much longer than I thought. The shortest will be 1 month, the longest 4 years. And we might make revisions in the future if necessary. As we have discussed with Mr. Mark, we have done a lot on transportation in terms of cycling or the MTR. Recently, we have provided 3 hours of free air conditioning. And in terms of market requirements, we conducted a study, and the demand is 570 to 600 units. We have conducted such demand study. Mr. Martin Liao, thank you. I have 2 questions. First of all, measures to support I&T companies at the Unicel. And at the earliest, funding application will be made to the FC by the 4th quarter, and the construction will finish in 2020. Despite the government's efforts, technology advances at a rapid pace, and every country is trying to fight for talents. According to a recent survey, respondents indicated that the provision of accommodation to their staff is a crucial factor, and the tenants of the science park also indicated that the provision of accommodation is crucial in retaining talents. So by 2020, ahead of the commissioning of Unicel, would the government have other measures to develop I&T and retain talents? That's my first question. And secondly, the government suggests HKSCP to rent out the Unicel units at about 60% of the market rate. And in Shanghai and Taiwan, as well as New York, similar shared living spaces are available. So can you tell us what the rental levels of those units in other countries are in terms of market rent? And that way we can tell whether your proposed rental levels are competitive. In terms of the sites, if you compare us with other places, you have to draw comparisons with their respective markets. In Hong Kong, housing is generally in shortage. The proposed range of $8,000 to $10,000 is based on the 2020 projections, and in some cities they might offer free rents, and this is something we are looking at.
The 60%, is this a good level? We believe this is a reasonable level. It's not a question of competing with other jurisdictions. Chairman, I'm asking whether we enjoy the competitive edge. 60% would be sufficiently attractive. In terms of competition, it depends on which jurisdiction you're comparing with. In Taiwan, a lot of the facilities are provided free. I think you have to look at the entire ecosystem. If you want to have more data, we're prepared to make them available. The key thing is whether this idea would enable people to retain talents and also to promote synergy. We'll look at the KPIs and then we consider whether we continue with that. In a loop area, we might replicate the same idea. There is a bigger space there. We have to ascertain what is going to be a success. Your question is a good one. We'll go away and have a look at the competitiveness in comparison with other places. In some places, the facilities are provided for free. It would be hard to compare that way. But the 60% of market rent is sufficiently attractive and it can retain talent. Commissioner? Dr. Liao asked whether there are other measures. In fact, for the startups, they do enjoy a lot of support. The laboratories, the offices will enjoy a rent-free period. It depends on what sector. For biotechnology, it can be as many as 4 years. So here, the tenancy can be 4 years. If they're involved in biotechnology, the incubation can be as long as 4 years because they do take a longer period of time. And this is about the support for the business, and the STPC will also identify investors for them, and they would try to identify the fund, the IT fund, to make investment in them. There is an incubator that managed to identify a unicorn in their investment. Now these are the kinds of support that they get as incubators, and the HK STPC will also do the marketing because the corporation is involved in a lot of marketing activities like exhibitions and so on, and they would promote these businesses to the potential clients so that they can start the business sooner rather than later. There is a whole one-stop service. Accommodation is one of them. It is not in existence at the moment, and we hope that we can get started with this and we can provide a whole range of services. Mr. Felix Zhou, Chairman. I'd like to find out more about the tenancy. It can be as short as 1 month and as long as 4 years. For biotechnology, we understand, but if it is 1 month, they come in and they get acclimatized to the situation and they pack up and go. Why 1 month? Why so short? And there is a lot involved in the execution of tenancy agreement. I am wondering whether this is cost effective. Second, the economic benefits. Para 7 says that during the construction period, you can have 180 billion value added. How can you derive benefits during the construction period? Secretary. Yes, I take part of the question and I defer to the Commissioner for the other part. 1 month tenancy. I'm not saying they will be like hotel where they take people on for a month. We do have the standard tenancy agreement. Prior to them coming to Hong Kong, those inviting them to Hong Kong will get the formalities done beforehand, and that doesn't present any problem. We're not running hotels. You're right. With hotels, you're not sure who are coming and when they're coming. Now we have 600 or so tenants here in Hong Kong each year. We know how many tenants would be visiting Hong Kong, and we should be in a position to tell after a while. You talked about the cost effectiveness. I defer to the Commissioner. The value added during the construction period, we work on the basis of the Census and Statistics Department. Simply put, they will hire the construction workers, and they would procure materials, and the workers will get paid, and we work on the basis of this value added chain. And normally, for these construction projects, we work on the basis of the same formula in terms of value added, and there is a value added to society in terms of employment, and there will be consumption, there will be spending, and that's how we work out the value added on the basis of the census and statistics. Mr. Zhong, of course, during construction, you would create economic benefits that way. I don't think you should incorporate this into the equation because it is misleading. I thought that while you're building the anal cell, you could really do something to generate the economic benefits. So wherever you go, whether you're building PRH units, so you can derive the economic benefits also. This is misleading the way you craft the paper. And paragraph 13, the Town Planning Board, the proposed development was approved with conditions by the TPB. Now, would this be achievable? All these are achievable. They require us to provide open space of not less than 1,000 square meters on the ground floor for public use, and this is achievable. And there are environmental requirements. Yes, these are achievable also. Dr. N. Zhang, she just stepped out. We still have a bit of time. Let me put a question here. Mr. Felix Zhong asked a question about paragraph 7, unless I'm mistaken. Yes, paragraph 7. And this is about the job opportunities in the course of construction. But what about after construction, when it's completed? Paragraph 7, Mr. Chairman, refers to both. The Unicel creates 300 job opportunities, and there are staff members there, and also the incubators, the tenants will be hiring more people, and that's the employment opportunities. And we anticipate that the direct value added will be more than $110 million, and indirect and induced value added will be $56 million. For the 3-year construction period, it is estimated that we're going to have 354 employment opportunities and a value added of $180 million. The figures before these are for the long term. Can I interpret it this way? With the Unicel, you're going to invite, you're going to induce the IT tenants to the science park. How many will be induced to come to Hong Kong? Well, the 300 job opportunities, 200 will be researchers and those involved in technological development, or whether they are from overseas or whether they are local companies, they will be hiring more researchers. The 100 support staff, they will be involved in management, cleaning, and they don't need to occupy the 500 cubicles. They are support staff, and they may be working in shifts, and they're not taking up the cubicles. The 100 support staff, these are the management and cleaning staff of the Unicels, are they? And also material suppliers. These are the people that will be required by the science park as a result of this particular project. These are the job opportunities that will be arising out of this. From what I heard, I didn't hear any objection to this proposal, but I can see that there are many gaps in the paper, like the management cost and the projection of the economic benefits. 300 job opportunities, 100 are support staff and management staff. And the demand projection, if you have the details, please make them available. And the criteria for allocation, I hope that prior to you submitting the paper to Finance Committee, you should make these, get this ready. Dr. N. Cheung. Beg your pardon, Chairman. I have to shuttle between two meetings. I've got a simple question about this Unicel here. It is a project for living accommodation. You're making this convenient to those who are working there in the science park. Now, this is free of any land premium. Would you consider taking out a loan from the banks? Or are you going to take out a loan there instead of what is being proposed here? Right? Loans. As I said, 70% will come from the government and 30% will be from commercial loans. I would like to get this done as soon as possible. We're also considering whether we can co-develop together with the private sector. We'd like to have better efficiency. If this proves to be a success, then we can provide funding to this kind of project in a better way. Now, this may sound like a project involving living accommodation, but in recent times, the shared economy development has driven a lot of accommodation development in Causeway Bay and Wan Chai. There is the WeWork co-working space, and this is run in a unique commercial model. WeWork, they also have a WeLive. This is along the lines of the Unicel concept. I'm sure under the shared economy model, there will be a lot of creative and cost-effective proposals. These are not traditional accommodation. All right, thanks very much. I put a simple question and you answered in great detail. Secretary, I'd just like to say that we live, we work, whatever, on the lifestyle, working environment, or even industrial buildings or mixed residential and commercial premises. There are a whole raft of different accommodation, but they are financing themselves 100%, and they are operating successfully, and the rental is not high. Why does the government have to stump up 70% here? In a block, the cost, 70% of the cost will be land premium, and the construction cost would take up around 20–30%.
Let's say this project costs $1 billion, and you can take out $200 or $300 million in bank loans. Would you consider that? I'm sure the banks would be happy to help. Can you think about that? I think you are going to hear the same questions at the FC anyway. You shouldn't give them. You shouldn't pay for 70% of the project. You should ask them to finance the project themselves. You still have 6 months till end of the year. You should instruct them to consider this approach and talk to the banks. If the bank loans are short of the amount, you can lend them the remaining balance. In recent years, we have seen a number of residential developments, and the construction cost is $45,000 per square meters. And you said there are a lot of common facilities. Are you going to have an Olympic standard swimming pool or a luxurious clubhouse? I will have to stop you. Your time's up. So before we meet at the Finance Committee, hopefully you can consider that. Thank you very much. You have a follow-up question? 3 minutes, please. Before you attend the FC meeting, you have to think about this. And price is a problem, or the cost is a problem. For medium to long-term accommodation needs, you said it ranges from 1 month to 4 years. I think 4 years sounds way too long. You have a surplus demand, and if you allow a tenant to stay for 4 years, it doesn't sound reasonable. If they can find accommodation elsewhere after a year or so, that would make more sense. If they live here for 4 years, they might become bored. No, there's no shopping mall, cinema here. It's not a very suitable place to live for a very long time. I think 4 years is just too long. And some of these foreign workers might not be in Hong Kong all the time. And this is one factor. And some people might find this unfair because they are not in Hong Kong all the time. If you grant them accommodation for 2 to 3 months, it would make sense. But if the period is too long, then it is a problem. 4 years is just a rough estimate, but the tenancy agreements will probably not be as long. The STP would probably renew their tenancies year by year, or they might grant 1 or 2 year tenancies. It really depends on the case. So we would not give them a 4-year tenancy in one go. You must be very careful in this because you are providing a discount. If tenants decide to occupy the unit, even though they are often not in Hong Kong, then it will give a very bad impression. Secretary, anything to add? If not, I will try to wrap up. In terms of the concept, I think no member would object to Unicel. But I think you should tidy up your paper. As Mr. Ronick Chen suggested, why are you going for this financing approach? even if the project is passed today, the Finance Committee members would ask about your choice of financing. And are the management fee arrangements reasonable? If there's a surplus after deducting management costs, would that money enter the cash flow? You have to explain all these issues. In terms of admission criteria, as Mr. Mok suggested, how can the arrangements reflect the nature of the work of Science Park? There's an element of shared economy, but apparently shared economy is about sharing our resources instead of pigeonholing this concept into your project, or else you might be challenged in the future. If you can provide vacant flats, and you might say that it's a case of shared economy. Anyway, do members agree with tabling of this project into the Finance Committee? But you have to, the Secretary certainly has to provide additional information. Chairman, we might not need to submit this paper to the FC. If the Bureau will rewrite this paper, they no longer have to share this with us. Well, this is not necessary. No, if the project can be financed by themselves, then it would not be necessary. So, Chairman, we are not against it. Commissioner, I can offer some information on the financing arrangement. If we talk about financing, we must consider their repayment ability and the presence of collaterals. The Science Park in the past, the government had worked with other organizations, and the organizations indicated that government guarantees would be enough. The government would provide guarantees, and the remaining 30% would be paid for by commercial loans. We had the expansion program of the Science Park and the 2 new blocks at the industrial estate. The HASTP has shouldered more than $8 billion, and another $6 billion were loans. Based on their operation after repaying the debts, well, we have to consider their repayment ability. Commissioner, you don't get my point. This is an independent project. If they fail to repay this project, the government can provide guarantees. It's different, you know. I just talked to some friends from the banking sector. They said it should be all right. If you have difficulties, I'm happy to help. In terms of the financing options, there are doubts about your proposed choice. The next term would be after October. So in terms of the financing arrangements, would members request the government to provide additional information before the proposal is tabled to the Finance Committee? If that's the case, can the government provide new papers in the coming panel meeting in October? Any views from members? Mr. Ma, Well, I will put this item to the vote. We have two options. First, submission of papers to the Finance Committee, and option 2, papers will be submitted to the CNI panel for further deliberation before it's submitted to FC. Dr. Elizabeth Quat, for the financing arrangements, I suggest the government to do more research and further explain themselves at the FC. Secretary. Dr. Chang had a very good point. But we are not just looking at the Unicel. It's about the overall financing arrangements of the science park. Since Dr. Chang made this recommendation, we will explain the financing arrangements in more detail to the Finance Committee. So we can focus on such discussions at the FC. We agree with submission of this paper to the FC in principle, but at the CI panel meeting in October, I hope the government can provide new papers for another round of discussion, or else we might be accused of filibustering at the FC. Can you say it again, Chairman? In principle, we agree that this proposal can be introduced into the FC, but in our CI panel meeting in October, I hope that we can further discuss the finance arrangements. In other words, they will show us a paper, and if we have strong views, we will reflect our ideas. Do you want to create a new item after October at the panel? Dr. Quat. You are talking about financing arrangements, so the FC would be an appropriate platform to discuss these. If we agree that this paper can be submitted to FC, we can discuss the financing arrangements there, and the government can explain the arrangements and restraints in detail. That would be better than taking up another slot here in October. Members had strong views about the financing arrangements. If since members have strong views, there is no reason we won't discuss this again at the CI panel, or else any questions at the FC would be accused or unwelcome. That would not be fair. I support the chairman's proposal. We will have a quick discussion next time. So we only have to discuss the finance arrangements. So let's take it from there. It's already on the agenda of the FC. Nonetheless, it's about members agreeing to the financing options. Members have a question mark on this at the moment. All right. This item cannot be included on the agenda of the FC. While we agree with this item, if you submit this paper to the FC, there would be strong opposition. Different members today have talked about the details and the additional information needed. Chairman, if you think the information is not adequate, we can submit an additional paper later. Chairman, Secretary, at the Finance Committee, we were always criticized on why we didn't discuss the items at the panel meeting. So members have a question mark about the financing arrangement. That's why I want to say that while we agree with the item in principle, we just want to see more details, and you should give the panel a chance to see those details.
係嘛？咁如果我哋聽
We're not going to reject the whole thing altogether. It's just that you are giving us the preview of the minute details, Secretary. Since the members still have a bit of time. Now, for the funding proposal, are you saying that the funding model is inappropriate, or are you saying that the funding model is not cost-effective? I hope that you would make this sufficiently clear for us to make better preparation. Dr. N. Zhang, Secretary. At the beginning, some members asked you why the construction cost is so high, and how do you work out the management costs and the rate of return and so on. Under what circumstances would you give approval for 1 year or 4 years? It seems to us that you don't have any detailed ideas. And you passed the questions to the Commissioner, and the Commissioner passed this on to the CEO, and we drew a blank, and I don't think we have sufficient details here. Second, about the funding. The government has granted the site. Why do you still want 70% of the cost from us? We have earmarked $20 billion, and $18 billion should include the Unicel and all the rest of it. How do you distribute the funding? Should we make this clear? Now you're coming here for another funding proposal. I would have thought that we have earmarked all the funding and how to spend $18 billion. We'd like to have a thorough discussion on this. We have only a few members here, and views are so diverse. In the Finance Committee, I'm sure that you're going to face extensive filibustering. You may spend another hour on this item at the next meeting, and you come here well prepared. It would be far better than you spending 3 days at the Finance Committee. Secretary? Well, it seems that this is broader than what I thought it would be. And it would be hard for you to have any in-principle endorsement. So I hope that, Chairman, you would make it clearer for us to make better preparation. Now, Dr. N. Zhang talked about $18 billion. It doesn't include this project. It doesn't. I hope that you would have the figures made clearer. As a Chairman, would you make your positions clearer to us? Secretary, this is how I see it. Now, for this entire project, members are supportive, and on this basis, we feel that, Mr. Secretary, you can submit the paper to the Finance Committee, but if you make the submission on the basis of this paper, then it would be unacceptable. We feel that the paper should include the funding model, the pros and cons, the comparison between the pros and cons in the funding model. It should include the projection of management costs, the revenue and expenditure, and also the details of the allocation criteria, so that at the CI panel we will have another go at the paper. If revision has to be made, so be it. I think this is about discussion on the fine details. I'm not sure whether you find this agreeable and acceptable. Is this acceptable? I never said it's not. It is not acceptable. I just like to clear things up. Now, so we'll come back to the C&I panel. That should be fine. If this is the case, we will make preparation for that. Well, this is what I think you mean. This is not my idea. Let me say this, Secretary. You can queue up regardless. You have to bear in mind that whether this panel endorses the idea of you submitting the paper, the proposal to the Finance Committee, you can still queue up at the Finance Committee. Now, sometimes a proposal is not endorsed by the panel and still queue up at the Finance Committee. Now, let me tell you, you can queue up regardless, and we can scrutinize the details. It should be fine. Right, the Secretary is just following the procedure. Yes. How urgent is it? Is this so urgent that we have to get this done within 3 months? Yes, we'd just like to lay down the groundwork. So when Electrical comes back, we'll go to the Finance Committee straight away, and as soon as we get the funding, we'll get on with the tendering and the contract execution. Right? We appreciate the difficulties, but we have to appreciate members' comments. So let me say this, in October or maybe in November, we'll have another go at this paper. All right? We'll have another go at this paper in November, and you make available all the details that we sought. All right? Is that okay? So we haven't endorsed the paper yet. Thank you. Next. Shall we invite administration in, please, for the next item?
次次都係㗎啦，大佬。啱。好。好，多謝政府當個代表。
Welcome, government officials. Welcome to item number 4, and this is about the trade relations between the mainland and Hong Kong. The administration will be briefing us on the CEPA and the investment agreement and economic technical cooperation agreement entered into with the mainland on the 28th of June 2017. We have the paper CB1 1234 1617/01, and the Secretariat has also provided the background in the form of 1293 stroke 16 to 17/05. Yes, please. Chairman, thank you. In 2003, the mainland and Hong Kong have entered into the CEPA, and we have enriched and expanded the CEPA throughout the years to expand the trade in goods and services and investment. 1,890 items are subject to CEPA with place of origin principle, and when these items are imported into the mainland, they enjoy zero tariff. On the 1st of June last year, we started the agreement on trade and services. The mainland has opened up 153 items for Hong Kong. So we enjoy the liberalization in trade, in services. As Chairman said last month on the 28th, we have entered into the investment agreement and agreement on economic and technical cooperation to broaden the scope of CEPA. In terms of investment promotion and protection, we have introduced the international obligations, and we also have the key direction mapped out for the key areas. Perhaps let me brief members on the details of the two agreements. The first one is the investment agreement. This covers different elements, the market access, the investment protection, and investment facilitation. Now for market access, as I said, the agreement on trade and services covers the areas of services. So this investment agreement covers other areas like manufacturing, mining, asset investment, and basically they're about the non-service sectors. Other than the negative list, the 26 measures there, the mainland authorities have also undertaken that the investors from Hong Kong will enjoy national treatment, and they enjoy treatment more favorable than other external investors. There is also the most favored treatment for Hong Kong to enjoy the access treatment more favorable than other jurisdictions. In terms of investment protection, both agree that investment investors will enjoy fair treatment. There will be sufficient protection against expropriation. Now, if expropriation occurs, there will be compensation on the actual value, and the proceeds can also be transferred overseas. We also have the investment facilitation. We have uniform standards and procedures in examining and approving investment applications. There is a stipulation of the reasonable time frame for examining investment applications. There is also a dispute resolution mechanism if there is a breach of obligations by one side causing losses. There will be a dispute resolution process. The other area is the ECO trade or the Economic and Technical Cooperation Agreement, and this is to strengthen the cooperation areas, and there will be further commitment, and this is incorporated into one single agreement. This Eco-Tech agreement has seen the inclusion of the cooperation in Belt and Road initiatives and sub-regional cooperation. For industries that enjoy advantages, they will be able to take part in these cooperation, like financial cooperation, legal and dispute resolution, IT, intellectual property, and quality supervision, inspection and quarantine, and so on.
The Eco-Tech agreement does not involve liberalization of market access, but it will lay the foundation for future collaboration and provide directions. the relevant agencies in both places would map out the collaboration measures in order to support trade developments in both places. All in all, the two new agreements will make CEPA more complete, and they would cover the trade in services and investment, and CEPA will become a modern liberal trade agreement, and they will facilitate trade in both directions, and they will deepen the collaboration between the two places in multiple arenas, so it has great significance. Thank you very much. Mr. Alex Chen, 5 minutes each, including question and answer. Thank you. These two agreements deepen the trade relations between both places and facilitate liberalization of trade services, trade in goods, and investment agreement. And there is a market access liberalization, and there are measures to promote the financial services sector, so I will certainly support it. I have a few questions for the Director General, and in paragraph 12, if the mainland accords preferential treatment to investments and investors from other countries or regions, such treatments will be extended to Hong Kong. Does Hong Kong need to file any applications? Do we always have to monitor whether preferential treatments are given to other regions or countries? Or if the central government would provide more preferential treatment to Hong Kong people by default? And on paragraph 20, well, these two agreements are rather complicated. Even though I do have some understanding of CEPA, I spent a long time reading these papers. But in terms of publicity, you held a media briefing, and the TID maintains a dedicated website. I think these are not enough to promote these two agreements. A lot of trades benefit from these agreements, and they cover different sectors. And we have legal services, financial services, accounting, innovation and technology, e-commerce, intellectual property, trademarks, etc. Will the TID promote these agreements to specific trades? The paper talked about building a working mechanism on the Belt and Road, building a communication platform, taking part in major infrastructure projects along the Belt and Road. So what would be the corresponding agencies? This involves multiple bureaus, such as the CDB or the HKMA or the FSTB Facilitation Office. Would there be multiple departments in charge? Thank you very much. On the most favored treatment provision, according to Article 6 of the Investment Agreement, the treatment given to our investors may not be worse off than the treatment accorded to other investors. And this arrangement would be by default. In other words, we don't have to make separate applications. If the TID or CDB signs similar agreements with other economies, we can share our arrangements right away. If any preferential treatment is given to us, we would notify the relevant trades as soon as possible. there won't be any delays in such arrangements. The agreements signed this time are less concrete than the agreements we signed in the past on market access. So we have outlined the contents of the agreements to trade associations. In terms of the agreements and their provisions, we will try to deepen understanding among the trades, and this is what we are working on. We are planning to meet different trades to explain the impacts of the agreements on them. What about the responsible agencies or departments? This is a new chapter under CEPA, and on the Ecotech agreement, as Mr. Edward Yao said, they are also working on this. For collaboration in certain sectors, we might have dedicated agencies, and different bureaus would be involved in the work of the Belt and Road, and I'm sure the TID and CDB will continue to take part. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok, thank you. On the CEPA arrangement, I have been monitoring the development of our creative industries. We have seen some progress in the past, and we have made grounds on cinemas and the film industry, and we are quite concerned about the national treatment. I represent the publishing sector for all books published in Hong Kong. If they are to be published in the mainland, a mainland publisher is required. We cannot open publishers in the mainland, so this is a major barrier for those who want to publish in the mainland. Has the government reflected such views? I spoke on that 4 years ago, but I've not received any updates. So have the government conducted any negotiations, and have you run into any difficulties? So how can you help our publishing trade to enter the mainland market? We can be subject to the same regulations, including censorships if required. As for our film industry, there have been relaxations for Hong Kong films to enter the mainland market, but there are still some barriers. For instance, the treatment between Hong Kong films and mainland films are still different. Our films are still considered foreign, and for co-produced films, there's still a limit on the number of Hong Kong and mainland actors. So has the government discussed this with the mainland government, and what is the progress? As for our television industry or TV shows, are there any barriers to TV shows entering the mainland market? How can we remove such barriers in order to offer more opportunities for our TV practitioners? Director General, thank you very much. For film, since CEPA was signed, the film industry was among the earliest industries to be opened up. Hong Kong films are not subject to quotas, and that's our edge over foreign films. The requirements on co-produced films were also relaxed, and Cantonese films could enter the mainland market. In the CEPA Supplement 6 and Supplement 10, co-produced films could be screened in the mainland as mainland films, and the post-production can take place in Hong Kong. And those films can be produced in the local dialect, that is Cantonese. So the rules have opened up, and they have been welcomed by the trade. I realize that there have been improvements, but the opening up is still not complete. We are still not receiving national treatment for the publishing trade. We have seen no improvement over the last 4 years. We will continue to do our best. Even though the investment agreement and Ecotech agreement do not focus on the liberalization of the services trade, but it does not mean that we are not working on that. We will continue to work hard on this. For the publishing trade, in CEPA Supplements 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10, there are provisions in place. I realize that the constraints mentioned by Mr. Ma are still here, so we will continue to work hard. The printing and publication trades are very different. One is about the machines, the other about content. For the publication trades, we have not seen any improvements. Mr. Martin Liao. Since CEPA was signed in 2003, the trade relations between Hong Kong and the mainland have seen more than 10 years. We have seen a number of platforms, for example, the Hong Kong-Macao Guangdong cooperation meeting, and recently we have the Guangdong-Zhuhai-Hong Kong Bay Area planning. The mainland economy develops rapidly. You might not know, you might not be able to catch its developments unless you take a look for yourself. Would you arrange visits to mainland cities with trade relations to Hong Kong and learn about their economic development from a legislative perspective? Director General, thank you very much. Over the years, we have been building collaboration platforms with the mainland. CEPA is a framework of trade collaboration with the mainland, and through this framework, we can promote our trade developments. And I agree with Mr. Liao that we have to take a look for ourselves to see the developments of the mainland. So we do support more exchanges in the mainland, and we are happy to facilitate. So if the panel wishes, we are happy to arrange such visits. But for this, we will I will leave it to the panel to come up with a consensus. For the trades, the government organizes regular visits to the Bay Area with the trade associations and stakeholders. So if the panel so wishes, we would be happy to facilitate.
OK，蔣麗芸。
Thank you. Dr. N. Zhang, Chairman, thank you. If I may put a question here. Earlier, we talked a lot about SEPA. And we have this problem of the big door being open, whereas the small door remaining shut tight. Is the situation improved, Director General? When we discuss with the Ministry of Commerce about this agreement, we would adopt a two-pronged approach. We would seek liberalization first, and then we follow up on the details. We publish a little booklet on the success stories of SEPA. We outline the way in which we can utilize SEPA. I'm sure that there may be some implementation problems on the ground, like at the provinces and at the city level. What about the accountants? How many accountancy firms have already set up the presence on the ground in the mainland or any other sectors? Indeed, we do have the information with us. I can make available a booklet to member, because the information is really substantial. For the banking sector, for instance, as of 2016-13, Hong Kong banks or subsidiaries are operating in the mainland. In Guangdong province, we have the pilot implementation. They have the branches and the setup there. What about other professions? Insurance. There are 1 insurance companies and 3 agents, and hundreds or so do have intermediary status. Accountancy, as of April 2017, through the mutual recognition of professional exam results, those who managed to secure the qualification, the number stands at more than 1,000. That's the number of those who have already passed the examination. What they set for the examination, they got the qualification, didn't they? Director General. Right, thank you, Chairman. This is the situation regarding the professionals under SEPA. Dr. N. Zhang, Chairman. I hope that the Director General might provide the information. President Xi Jinping visited Hong Kong. He mentioned the Belt and Road initiatives and the Bay Area development. It was said that Hong Kong should cooperate more with Guangdong and Macau under the Bay Area for Belt and Road initiatives. Hong Kong has the facilitating role. I don't have the article or the speech here with me, so I think we should focus our attention on the development of the Bay Area involving Hong Kong, Guangdong, and Macau. Culturally, these places are closer to Hong Kong. If you take into account the XRL, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, this 3-hour economic zone would offer tremendous potential, and the population can be as much as 100 million taken together. So what do you think the government can do to make the investors aware of the situation? What more can you do in the way of promotion, of cooperation? So will you try to secure better conditions for the investors in Hong Kong? Director General, let me say this in response. There are certain areas that we can assist the Bay Area development. We can use our expertise in SIPA. The first thing is this dissemination of information. If we have information available, we will make it available to the trade, and we'd like to bring the sectors up to date about the latest development. In fact, we do have a pretty close liaison with Guangdong Province. I mentioned the coordination in the systems. SIPA has created a framework. Let's say Guangdong Province offers early and pilot implementation of measures. Now, these measures are not applicable nationwide. Guangdong would become a testing ground for Hong Kong investors to make inroads, and this is really important and beneficial to the development of the Bay Area. I'm sure we can bring our experience in SIPA to bear on the Bay Area development. The other thing is, like Dr. Martin Lau said, a site visit. We are only delighted to work together with members and have a look at the latest development in the Bay Area. I'm sure this is an eye-opener. Of course, if we can take advantage of our infrastructural development in Hong Kong, the development potential will be huge. So we can certainly offer assistance in these three areas. Dr. N. Zheng, Chairman, at the next session we can consider a site visit. Yes, we can do this next year. I'm saying that we can put down a marker. There is a suggestion of a site visit. All right, Mr. Su Ka-fai, Chairman, I was going to say what Dr. N. Zheng was saying. If we can have a site visit to the Bay Area, it would be a good idea. That has been answered. Dr. Martinell? In Hong Kong, people don't quite understand the importance of the Bay Area. If you look at the infrastructure is there. You have the Kong-Zhuhai-Macao bridge. There are two bridges at Humen. It is, the east and west are well connected. The cluster of cities is so close together now with the infrastructural development. I don't think we understand this very well. I don't think LegCo members are well aware of the situation. If you can have a look for yourselves, it would be a good idea. All right, let me follow up on one question here. The paper refers to the SIPA, and a lot of sectors can make their way into the mainland in search of opportunities. Let me put this to the administration. This is a mutual effort. When Hong Kong's economy, when the trades are moving into the mainland, what implications will there be on the trades in Hong Kong? When the environment outside of Hong Kong has improved, then I think there will be some implications on the local economy. Has the administration conducted an interactive study? It is not simply a question of moving into the mainland, but what implications will there be on Hong Kong? Have you conducted any studies on the implications? And there is also this element of competition for talents under SIPA, and they are vying for our talent. In this process of competition for talents, what can we do to make sure that the talents that we need in Hong Kong will be in abundant supply here, and that the competitive edge in Hong Kong will not be compromised in the process? Right, Director General? Thank you, Chairman. Of course, this is mutually beneficial. It's not a one-way street. This is a mutual process. When the mainland is developing its economy, certainly it is a huge market for Hong Kong as well as for the outside world, and Hong Kong does enjoy some advantages of being close to this market. Hong Kong is an international trade center. Over the years, Hong Kong has been open to the external world. A lot of the commodities and also the service industries do have an international outlook and make provision, make available their services. Because of the CEPA arrangement, they would require talents that understand the mainland market and also are proficient in the language. But when we are developing Hong Kong as an international trade center, certainly there is a demand for talents, and CEPA does create a demand for talents. Education would be important, and training will also be important. I'm sure that we do have plans for nurturing talents in Hong Kong. We haven't heard anything about CEPA causing any shortage of talents in Hong Kong. I heard what members said regarding publishing, film, printing, and finance, professional, and all these sectors. They want to make inroads into the mainland market. And I hope that they can make available their services in the mainland market. And this is an interactive situation. We don't have any problems with the availability of talents. It is an interactive process. Well, I've highlighted a phenomenon, and this is a holistic issue. When we enter into the CEPA agreement with the mainland, there is an interactive process. I think it is incumbent upon the administration to identify the implications and make response to this, instead of just saying that this is an interactive process, because we do need to make sure that in Hong Kong we still have sufficient competitive edge and a critical mass of talents to face up to the challenges and competition. In the process of vying for talents, we have to take appropriate measures to retain our talents. Maybe this has got nothing to do with you, Director General, but I think that you have to be ahead of the game and make sure that everything is all right in terms of the availability of talents, and that we should have sufficient critical mass of talents available to face the challenges arising from a thriving CEPA arrangement, because that would drain our talent as a result. I hope that the administration might relate the message to the Bureau, and that this kind of study must be conducted. Mr. Yu Xiwei, Chairman, Para 28 and 29 of the paper, about the Hong Kong travel agents running tour groups in the mainland. One has been granted approval in 2016 in the proposal no more than 5 sole proprietorships would be allowed. And I understand that the threshold is pretty high in the mainland of China if they run travel agents, and people don't know where they turn for advice. They go to the CNTA, and they would be advised to read up on the literature. I'm wondering what the government can do to seek to lower the threshold regarding sole proprietorship for travel agents.
In
terms of consultation, will the relevant departments provide consultation service so that Hong Kong travel agents would know the threshold? In the past, the travel agents might want to extend their business from Guangdong to the entire country. But if they want to establish wholly owned agencies in the mainland without experience, would you provide consultation and support services? Director General. Thank you. As Mr. Yu said, under the agreement on trade in services, up to 5 Hong Kong travel agents are allowed to be established on a wholly owned basis to operate outbound group tours for mainland residents in Hong Kong and Macau. And 4 applications have been granted. The remaining one was recently approved as well. So the work is ongoing, and we have seen successful applications. As for the market access threshold, under CEPA, apart from opening up market access, trades have called for the relaxation of thresholds, and that would have to do with capital, scale of businesses, and the ability for businesses to provide services. The mainland market is substantial, so are you able to provide the services? We will try to secure more market access for our trades, including possible relaxation of the thresholds for Hong Kong businesses. We will follow up on these. If members or trades have recommendations, we are happy to listen. Finally, the availability of information. The TID is happy to act as the bridge. Under the CEPA framework, we are happy to offer an information platform to offer the latest updates. So if you would like to see certain information, please let us know. Thank you very much. All travel agents have seen their applications approved, so there's only 1 quota left. In the next stage, are you going to raise the cap so that more Hong Kong travel agents can benefit? And with the Belt and Road and the Great Bay Area, there might be new opportunities for the travel trade. So will you allow more travel agents to be established in the mainland? The 2 agreements we discussed today are not about liberalization of trade in services, but we will continue to reflect the views of the trades. Any other questions from members? If not, I will summarize. The government introduced the investment agreement and ecotech agreement under CEPA and the opportunities they bring about. The agreements and their texts are very detailed and complicated. We hope the government can organize briefings by trade, and electronic information should be made available on TID's website. The reason is that not all stakeholders in the trades might attend your briefings, but the information is nonetheless important to them. The new agreements cover many areas, and the electrical paper is relatively simple. So I expect more details on the two agreements, including your analysis, the potential opportunities, and so on. Mr. Ronick Chan said the BOC group read the information, and they, for them, they need time to understand the agreements. So you should also include the potential opportunities and cite examples so that people who are interested can be informed. Can you provide one-stop inquiry services? And can you offer a hotline? Members asked about the possibility of a duty visit under the CI panel, but we would not arrange this in the current term. We would leave it to the next chairman. Any response from the government? Thank you very much for your suggestions. For CEPA and the two agreements, contents have been uploaded to the TID website. Bilingual information is available. We have also offered elaborations of these two agreements in the form of Q&As. In terms of the enforcement of the provisions and case sharing, we will continue to update our page on CEPA in order to inform the trade. Will you offer a hotline? We have hotline services already, and the numbers are located at the back of the leaflet on CEPA. Alright. I'd like to thank the administration as well as members. This is the final regular meeting of the current term. I'd like to thank you all for your participation. The meeting's adjourned. I wish you a great summer, and we will meet again in October. Thank you.